Greetings. I'm Ken Dickey, and this is the third snippet on color and color tools in Cuis Smalltalk. And so, I'm going to start talking about how the pieces fit together and how they layer to compose to different ways. And hopefully, this will be interesting and informative. And I thought I'd start with mentioning, since we're going really from the Cuis base here without any added things, why why the base is as it is. It is fairly minimal, and minimal is the simplest thing that'll work. If it's not needed again by everybody and so forth, then we want things to be kept, gratuitous complexity and things out of the way, and you'd like to, however, have everything you need at your fingertips, and it should appear when it's needed. And so this is a bit about how to do that. Uh, this is from a talk given by one Lutic, who I think of as Cuis's master gardener. And there was a famous paper by Dan Ingalls called Design Principles Behind Smalltalk, which is really worth reading. And you can get into that from our website in GitHub, Cuis Smalltalk website under Cuis Smalltalk Dev. And the idea is to get back to this is in reaction to the growth of other small talks, and particularly Squeak and Pharaoh. That Squeak uh, ended up being a large ball of mud that had a lot of experiments, some better thought out than others, that kept getting accreted and added, and to get at some point it got fairly bloated, and they've been doing a pretty good job of trimming that back. But it's not what you think about as minimal coming from Smalltalk 80. And so the idea is to get back to the simplest thing that'll work. And including only kernel classes, the GUI framework, and the basic development tools. And the idea is that if it's small enough to fit in somebody's mind and they can orient, that you can, experiment, learn, and then exchange, to share what you've learned, and you know, programmatic artifacts and that kind of stuff. So I think these are all good things. Uh, this is a simple text editor. If I right click on it, like in most panes in the user interface, one gets a health menu that is context specific. It's specific to that pane. And if I go for help, so you can see there's a bunch of stuff about text editors. And what this tells me is if I want to come here and add a color. Let's see, there should be a color here. Yeah, Command 8. So if I come up here and do Command 8, great. So I can change that to blue and do Command 8 here, and maybe cyan. Anyway, but so here's one basic use of color within. I'm going to close this within the user interface. And let me put this back down in the taskbar, and let's take a slightly different track through here. So get a string morph, and I'm going to middle click, command click to get a menu. And you notice that if I try to do a change color here, I don't have enough stuff added to be able to interactively change the color. So we're gonna look at that in the next segment. But here we're being minimalist, and but what I do want to do is to go and get an inspector for this string. And so an object inspector allows me to see the values for this particular object, and also to make some changes. So this lower pane is actually a specialized workspace, and so I can say self, which is bound to the object, the string morph in this case, contents, and oops, yeah, self contents, Cuis, Smalltalk. Okay, and now if I right click here, I get the context help, and I can say do it, and you see that we now have Cuis Smalltalk here. And so self color yellow, so it's easier to see. And now again I can do it, and you see we got yellow. Emphasis is I don't remember the name, the encoding for this, but I want it to be bold. Okay, so we'll put the bold code in there, and so let's take it, make it an abstract font from me. Okay, and Command D for do it, and I don't have other fonts loaded, so I'm just going to make it there. So without the some of the fancier stuff to make things smooth from my perspective, this is the type of thing you do in the base environment. So it's not that difficult. You can do all the algorithmic stuff from here, but it's a little I do specific things to make it easier for me to work the way that I want to work, and so that's where a lot of this other stuff comes from that we'll get into coming up. So if I just one of the things I can do when because Smalltalk's been used by a long time by people that are tool builders, makers. There are a lot of things to help us out, and one of them is that we can go through and browse. We can select something and say browse, and the something I selected was the name of a class, the class color, and by George, I come up here and I get a browser which opens up in that particular class. If I go to the upper left pane and again get a context specific menu, I can do a find class, and by typing the name I can get all the classes with color in the name. So there are things that have to do with text highlighting, color maps and forms and all kinds of fun things. And including translucent color, which is just color with an alpha or transparency value that allows us to do some fun things. And so here's the color class, and again this is a classical Smalltalk browser that has the first pane has categories of things. Tools, a lot of stuff about morphic and layouts and text and files and yada yada. The second pane here is about the classes, the method categories here, and then finally the methods themselves over here. And so when I take a look at the alpha value of something that doesn't have any transparency at all is obviously one. We can get red, blue, and green by picking the components out, brightness, chroma. These are all, if you go again to Wikipedia and take a look at the algorithmics and how you translate different color models into RGB, into and out of RGB, you'll find the basic algorithm for this sort of thing. We also have things like the swatch, which is just a way of getting little red uh, 16-bit squares to put into menu bars and those sorts of things. Let's see, conversions, again, closest pixel value things, a lot of algorithmic stuff here, groups of shades, uh, color names. Again, if there happens to be a matching color in the color names dictionary, we can generate a lot more colors than there are names for in the dictionary. But if there happens to be one, it's very nice to print out the name. Uh, Various types of tests, transformations, how you add colors or adjust the brightness or the alpha and luminance and various aspects, make something slightly darker, and so forth. And how object serialization is writing things out to disk, and how you store things and like that. At the class level, the things that are shared or happen to be, cached color maps and things, uh, and also some name colors for your basic names like light blue. And so in this case, you're taking a hex string with a red, green, and blue, hex digits, dog 0 uh, for green, the green value, and that sort of thing. Uh, I think there's some examples here somewhere. Yeah, various types of maps from one color space to another, color from the user. Yeah, color space conversions. That things that are generally shared. Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. I wanted to show examples. Okay, so show color cube. Uh, this is kind of a fun thing to do, a useful thing that when you're writing code, if you have something that could be executed directly, uh, that you go ahead and you put it in a comment in the code, and then if I say do it, then you can see in this case we've got a set of colors drawn along here. Now these are just bits on the display. Okay, there's no object here, there's no morph. So if I get a world menu and say restore display, then it all goes away because there's no object there redrawing itself as there is with uh, this browser. Okay, well that's basically the basic thing here. There's plenty of stuff that has to do with geometry and transformations and bitmaps and all that kind of stuff. It's all fairly straightforward mechanics. I don't think there's a lot really to show here, and because it's algorithmic and not graphic, and that's not as much my forte. As I say, I do the algorithmic things, but I don't spend a lot of time necessarily there because my head works visually. So that's it for this segment, and I hope you'll click on the next one, and when we talk about color dictionaries and how when you say set a color, that happens. And so hope to see you next time.